Hello, my name is Terry Sacka, and you are watching The Wealth Transfer, where global economics, biblical principles, and protecting and preserving your family's wealth is paramount in the times to come and the times today. We are going to catch on the program as we let off with the Asian Development Bank and we let off with the reserve currencies. What we're going to do is roll in now with a little bit more of the U.S. data in this program, showing you why right now it's time to pay attention. We are along with Dr. Charles Vance, pastor and author. Charles.
Hey, Terry, good to see you today.
How are you?
Appreciate you joining us, folks. Hope you'll stay around. Listen to what Ecclesiastes chapter 11 and verse 4 says. He that observeth the wind shall not sow, and he that regards the clouds shall not reap. All that simply says, if you're watching what's going on around you, you're probably not going to do what's right, what you're supposed to do. I think about Genesis chapter 41, where the Pharaoh had a dream, the Pharaoh of Egypt, and he saw these 7 cows that were fat, and then he saw these 7 lean cows, and they ate up the fat cows. And you know, the story goes on. You guys probably know the story. Had some corn, did the same thing. And the end of the story was Joseph interpreted the dream and said there's going to be 7 years of plenty and 7 years of famine. He said you need to plan while things are good. Don't wait until something goes bad. Terry, there's too many people that are waiting to see if something's going to go bad before they do what they should be doing to prepare for their future.
You know, Charles, that is an excellent point, because it's about Americans in general like this. We have like what we call a normalcy bias. And normalcy bias really just means intelligent people are in denial because they haven't seen it, they're not part of it, it hasn't really happened yet, so we kind of have a tendency to just shove it off. But in that normalcy bias, that denial really hurts, because if we actually paid attention to the history and pay attention to some of the screaming indicators we have today, we may want to reconsider waiting. And waiting is what cost us in the past, and what we're trying to do here is present information to you now so you could prepare your family. And it's not even just in the financial realm, mind you. I mean, prepare your family with emergency food, emergency water, with some of the things that are presenting us here with the global economics, with the morality code we're seeing in the United States, with the whole Shemitah and the Jubilee and the 4 blood moons coming in September. I think leading up to this, speaking of the scripture Charles just spoke about, the 7, that happens to be a Shemitah year cycle time frame, and we just so happen to be approaching in September the 7th of the 7, meaning we're rolling into, starting September 2015 through 2016, the Jubilee year, and this happens to be a Shemitah year. Now, for those that don't understand the Shemitah, we are going to continue to always talk about that. We do think it's a very interesting mystery. Not that it's exactly this is the way it's going to happen, but we do want to show you this is what has happened. And ironically, in the last 2 Shemitah cycles, which turned into the 9/11 and which turned into the 2008 market crash, just so happens to be to the Elul 29. Talk about timing.
No, Terry, those are just 7-year cycles, aren't they? That has happened. We've seen them in history, but the Bible speaks of them as well. Correct?
It's that Isaiah 9,
okay.
and that's the part that's fascinating. I think, you know, there's some wonderful people that I think have gotten major downloads from the Holy Spirit and God out there speaking about this, and they have written about it and illustrated how that biblical is lining up to the actual financial cycles of the United States.
Now, to listen to some of your opening statements, you almost sound maybe like a prepper. Are you a prepper? Are you a doomsday prepper?
Well, being that our main offices are in Florida and we have hurricanes, and we do have our administrative offices in North Carolina, hurricanes, we have a tendency to be prepared anyway. I mean, even the government tells us that we should be prepared 90 days with food. You know, even on the sites, the government FEMA sites, they tell you to have 90 days of emergency food, have water. So
no matter where you are, really.
No matter really where you are, because we really don't know. And it's very important because, you know, you'll run out of food in 2 days in a grocery store if we have an emergency. And we've seen enough of them. But what's coming is so unusual, Charles, that if you're not prepared with some of these basic things, you just may find yourself in a position that may compromise your integrity because you may do things you may not want to do. So get prepared.
So preparation is just extremely important. You know, there's another story in Genesis, or 2 Kings chapter 4, where the widow came to the prophet and said, my husband is dead, creditors are coming to take my boys away, and she said, we don't know what to do. And he said, what do you have in your house? Mm-hmm. So he told her to use what she had, and she said first nothing, and then she said a pot of oil, just a small pot of oil, and he told her to go borrow vessels, not a few. And she began to pour the oil into the vessels, and that little pot of oil that she had filled up vessels till her house was full of oil. But had she, and the moral of the story is when she ran out of the last vessel that was empty, the oil quit flowing. So the moral of that story to me is you only can have what you prepare for. You're going to lose anything else that you haven't prepared for. So it's important for us to make preparation,
yes,
or else we're going to find ourselves in a situation where we're compromised.
Well, and not only that, we don't want to be in a position where we have to rely on somebody else.
Very good.
And I really believe that's where, you know, the government, I know a lot of people get on beating up the government. I mean, obviously we're finding our government sliding more towards a socialist controlling aspect. But, I mean, really, look at our communities. I mean, my heart goes out, and I pray for the police. I pray for our military. They're up against mindsets that are completely blowing off the concept of God and truth and goodness, and they're dealing with some very serious, disrespectful criminal elements that are really not looking out for their best interest. The community in general, there seems to be a change in our moral compass. So from our community's point of view, we have to understand, we have to know the government is trying to look after our best interest, and they're preparing for the worst. We know that because of things like Jade Helm that are going on in the military exercises. These things are legitimate concerns, mind you. Don't get me wrong. I'm with it. I'm ex-Army. I get it. But I do have to believe in my heart that the initial is really, truly to try to help contain the chaos and be able to distribute. Now, if you don't have anything, if you're not prepared financially, if you're not prepared with food, water, or basic essentials, then you have to rely on the government or somebody to look after you, or you're going to die, right? So this is kind of a twist that's going on, and we have to be careful not to be too extreme.
Isn't there an entitlement mentality, though, it seems like spreading over all of the United States?
There's no doubt about that.
I think the reason mainly that we have that is because the government has taken care of so many people that really don't need taken care of. You know, I'm in the real estate business. We have rental properties and so forth, and it's amazing to me how many people call that the government actually pays for them to live somewhere.
I know.
And they're well-bodied people. I've met, most of them are well-bodied people that I've met.
And now I'm with you, but let me jump on this because I'm with that. I get it. But the other side to that coin, we spend $1 trillion a year on welfare. $1 trillion now. And I know where Charles is going with that, but here's the other side to this. I'm with that they're able-bodied and they can work. A lot of those people can. Look at the inflation we're going to get into over the next few weeks. We're going to show you direct comparisons on your buying power in what it used to be and what it is today. People can't make a living. Even on some of the basic jobs, kids coming out of college can't even make enough money to be able to pay for rent and insurance and cars. Regulation is just eroding the concept of business. We're not making the money we used to make back in the old days. It's difficult. You throw someone off of that welfare system, where are they going? Granted, I don't buy the fact that that's, they're taking from one person to give to another. That's absolutely wrong. But what's the solution to help those that are trying to find their way? Because what's coming economically is going to be so huge of a game changer, a shift in everything we know. Are we prepared? Most of us have not prepared yet. It seems like the majority of people we talk to or come across that are preparing for financial crisis are prepared for whatever emergency the government seems to be preparing for are those that are deeply in the spirit. The rest of the folks are kind of like, I get it, but let me sit back and wait and see. What's going to happen is you wait and see, it's going to be too late and possibly very difficult to accomplish those means. So to get started on protecting your entire life savings, your retirement, this is the stuff that is going to allow you to not only survive the time, but be able to help in the church ministry and your neighbors. If you get wiped out financially this time around, we're talking worse than 2008, are you going to be able to be any good to your family, your neighbors? You're going to be relied on the system, and that's where we in the body of Christ should not be. So how do we get started on some of this? How do we know what steps to take? Here is some information and ways you can get started.
Cornerstone Asset Metals is here to help you protect and preserve what you have worked hard to gain. For those who have IRAs to protect, 401ks to preserve, or cash in the bank, we would like to send you a package of information regarding the changes to the dollar and the challenges of our economy that you need to be prepared for. This package includes how easy it is to roll over your current IRA or 401k into a physical precious metals IRA for long-term protection of your hard-earned wealth. For those of you with cash to invest, we can arrange to have your precious metals stored in a private vault or simply send it to your home. Call or register now.
See, as we were leaving off with U.S. economic data currently today, and we were talking about how the Chinese are coming in as a reserve currency. It looks like they're going to make it come October, which is going to be a game changer for the American dollar. And we were starting to get into some of the statistics of this. This one is known as margin debt. And I want you really to understand margin debt really means the institutions and managers, individuals, they're borrowing money to go into investments. Now, every time they do this in the stock market, we see peaks and troughs. And the peaks and troughs in this next chart I want to show you just so happen to be the Shemitah year peaks and troughs, and these are real foretelling indicators. So let's look at this image 31. It's the margin debt of the S&P, which is the major index in the markets. Now this image 31 is incredible. Look at that. The red line are the peaks of margin debt. But what I want you to pay attention to, really look at this image, because the left red one is the 9/11/2000. Remember that one. Now, we know our financial buildings. That's the first Shemitah we're talking about.
Let me break in a second. You're saying that margin debt is when people are actually borrowing money to invest.
Usually stock market brokers, traders, bankers, managers, those are the ones doing it.
So they're anticipating the stock market continuing up.
They're leveraging themselves to go into the market to make as much money as possible.
Gotcha.
But if you notice the red line on the left, that is 2000 when the peak hit. And look at the collapse that followed. That we all know as 9/11 and the market collapse. Shemitah 1 to the Elul 29. The middle one, those gray areas are major recessions. Look at the big thick gray one in the middle. That one is 2008. Notice the margin debt on that is higher than in 2000. And if you also notice 2000, 2007, perfectly to the Shemitah Elul 29. Soon as it hits, look at the collapse, and that one was the largest percentage collapse in the history of the United States. Now, since then, we've been printing trillions of dollars. Look at where the margin debt is right now, March of 2015. That's current. It's higher than the first two. Unbelievable correlation and disconnect from the blue line, which is the real stock market S&P company growth. Meaning this isn't real. Okay, you can take that off.
So people are not being safe anymore again. There's like...
Beyond not being safe.
When these things hit, the people are afraid. They withdraw all that, lose money, and they'll stay there for a while. I mean, that's what the chart's showing us, apparently.
And what's that really...
The fear wears off?
Not even really the people. It's really what we're seeing is a hyper borrowing frenzy from money markets, bankers, traders in the system.
So they're using money they don't have.
They're using money they don't have. And so what happens is when you see those peaks, the reason the markets crash is because indicators show that they better get out. When
Oh, wow.
everybody's running to the door in a movie theater, are you all getting out? No, you see. So what happens is they're all rushing to the door and the markets collapse.
Now, these are people in the know. These are people that have borrowed money.
They're taking risk.
The risk takers.
Yep.
And this is not the average person that's investing in the stock market or has their retirement in the stock market.
Problem is, yes, that they do. That's the whole point. The traders, the bankers, they're taking the risk. We are the ones getting the consequences.
Right.
We are the ones in 2008, mind you, that lost half of our retirement. Our 401ks, our IRAs literally fell in half. We lost half of it. A lot of people say, yeah, well, I've recovered half of it. Well, no, you haven't, because your buying power is not the same. That chart is so foretelling. And what I like is it really lines up with a wonderful gentleman of God who has just nailed the harbinger in this whole Shemitah concept. And when he talks about that in the spiritual, it's lining up identical with the financial market system. We can't say exactly when that's happening, but those are 7-year cycles you just watched or saw, and yet look how perfectly, once they hit, they crash. Now, can you afford a crash like that again?
You're looking at history. I mean, it's not like we're making up something that it's actually took place.
It took place. And the question
and
is...
it's setting up again to do the same thing.
It's setting up big this time. But the worst thing is, did you notice it's higher than in 2008? And I ask this question, can you afford 2008 and greater? The market crash we had in 2008, the losses you took in 2008, can you afford greater loss and crash? Because if you notice, that peak is a lot higher than 2008. The crash is going to be a lot worse. It is setting up. I don't see how the probability and statistics, the laws of gravity, the spiritual nature of not only is it a Shemitah year, it's a Jubilee beginning, and it's a 4 blood moon cycle. I'm sitting back and getting ready, and if it doesn't, fine. If something's coming to America anyway, based on the stuff we've talked in the past shows, this is just giving you some of the data. I mean, for instance, look at the patterns that have been developing. Look at this image 32. This is the real GDP, our developing gross domestic product, all the way back to 1948. If you've known, now on the left is 1948. And look at how we just kind of go up, we go down, we go up, we go down. The current, what you see there in the right-hand corner in the red, that is our current growth, is the slowest rebound growth in history on record from a massive recession. The bottom is when we hit recessions. The top is when we're expanding. We normally expand, if you notice, from left to right all the way back to World War II. We expand a lot more than this. If you've noticed here, not only have we not expanded, it's the lowest expansion we've ever had. If you've noticed, it's falling again. You can take that off.
Why are we not bouncing back? Because the news, if you listen to the news,
Thank you, Charles.
mainstream news,
Thank you.
They tell you, you're showing statistics.
Yep.
The news tells us everything's up.
Charles, I'm telling you,
up.
this is what we're talking about. The deception is so unbelievable that if we are not properly prepared in the body of Christ, we are getting deceived. This time is a doozy. I'm not saying it, I'm showing it. That is the worst recovery we've had in the history of our current system.
Why did that recovery? Why are we not recovering?
Answer the question is why we have not. We are so inundated with debt. We printed trillions and trillions of fake fiat currency dollars. These are fake, mind you. Remember, they're Federal Reserve notes. They're fake. Our unemployment is staggering. It's in the 20 percentile. People stopped looking for work. We have not recovered because we're in a cycle of history that has exhausted itself in the fake debt monetary credit system of just, you can't just keep going, right?
So
can any household keep spending money on your credit cards, or does there come a reckoning day where you got to pay your bill?
Is it the banking system, the government, people? Is it just across the board? Everybody is doing this?
It's really the government that, if you notice, the government can't keep its budget. The government is constantly spending in way more than they may make, so they're setting a bad example.
Sure.
Then what they do is the bankers are loaning more money than they have in the bank, and we, the people, have developed this habit of having massive debt. If you've noticed, I mean...
People don't pay any attention to it,
Well, they don't, and what you've noticed is we all have massive debts. Well, we were trained, credit cards, debt, because it's no big deal. These habits are really bad. As I asked, can you keep charging a credit card into oblivion? Can we all just charge all we want? No. What happens? We hit a limit, we have to start paying on it. Some credit card debt, I hear people say they'll be paying on it for 20 years. That's how in debt they are. Well, see, there's a reckoning. We're coming to the reckoning period. The cycle we're showing you in the U.S. data right now currently is setting up a reckoning period. I don't know if it's exactly going to happen on the Shemitah. I'm saying the Shemitah is a great spiritual foretelling. I am saying it's coming to America and coming soon. Why are we not preparing better? Why are we trusting in the system, stocks, bonds, currencies, not in what God has established as money, which is silver, gold. Haggai 2:8, the gold is mine, the silver is mine. It's not infinite. We can't fake it. We can't make it. And so, you know, how do we get started? What do we start to do with this? Get educated. It's the best investment, and here's some ways you can.
Cornerstone Asset Metals is here to help you protect and preserve what you have worked hard to gain. For those who have IRAs to protect, 401ks to preserve, or cash in the bank, we would like to send you a package of information regarding the changes to the dollar and the challenges of our economy that you need to be prepared for. This package includes how easy it is to roll over your current IRA or 401k into a physical precious metals IRA for long-term protection of your hard-earned wealth. For those of you with cash to invest, we can arrange to have your precious metals stored in a private vault or simply send it to your home. Call or register now.
Now, I know a lot of folks still to this day just don't understand or get the whole concept of silver and gold because the system is teaching us and lying to you about its true nature. But let's just remember the fact. The fact is the Constitution says grains of silver is the U.S. dollar. We always were silver and gold, and if we've always held silver and gold, we were infinitely wealthier. Granted, you couldn't hold it, back in the day. Silver was always something that we could hold on to, and you'll see going forward. We're going to get into in the next few weeks, we're going to start to show you unbelievable comparisons of buying power between different assets to show you how better to position yourself going forward, because you want to be in the right asset, and when you actually see it visually, it'll really hit home. So the question is, we're showing you as data now of why it's important to get prepared and quickly, because something is setting up. Go to image number 33, for instance, because a lot of people ask, well, why is this happening? Well, here it is. It's known as the moral compass, I call it. We've lost our moral compass. The banking elite own and control everything. The special interests of the banking elite then have the military, industrial, and the corporate mainstream media. Now, if you notice how that breaks down, you have your the groups that manipulate the government, the military complex that provides the protection and causes the conflict, the lobbyists who bribe the government, and the media who misinform and brainwash the individuals. And then if you notice, the government then has total control through the police, the military, and what we call the alphabet agencies to spy on us. And you can take that off. But what has happened is the banking system actually are in control. The actual bankers in the world are in control. It's not your representatives. I hate to break the news to you, but your representatives have to do what the bankers tell them. Now, they try to make you think they're doing this and that, and they'll give a fine to this person or fine to that person, but the banking system is absolutely in control of every aspect of the market. Dangerous part? I don't buy that they win, because it's so incredibly disingenuous and dishonest and Luciferian at the core that there's going to be a reckoning. There's always a pushback. What is that pushback? We're not exactly sure, but the wave is setting up this fall going forward for some very dramatic changes in not only our nation, but the whole global economic understanding.
Terry, most people don't realize that this is the fourth federal or national bank that has been established in the U.S. All three prior to this have gone to oblivion.
Yes.
Because of what you've said, they've printed money until there is no end to it, and it becomes worthless after a while. You can't just keep doing that.
Well,
we can't do it.
And
they won't let us do it.
And that's what's interesting is people
they call us counterfeiters.
I know. And people ask why is this happening and what's really going on. If you notice that one chart we showed you that shows the peak and the valley, what they're doing is they're printing a lot of these and making interest rates so cheap that corporations and hedge funds borrow money and go in the stock market. The consequence is to us, our buying power. What does this really buy you today that it used to buy you 20, 30, 40 years ago? And there's a big difference, you see. This is a reckoning. There's always a reckoning, just like a clock always has a tendency to sway. I really believe its end result leads us to what is known as a hybrid socialism. It almost has to, when a third, if not more, of your nation, and continuing more and more every day, are on government assistance. You have no choice but to control them, and it's hybrid socialism at that point. So the question is, are we ready? Are we in the body of Christ ready this time? How many warnings have we been given? Not just from the wealth transfer showing you data, but from prophets and ministry leaders. How many people are saying, get prepared, think through it, have food, have water, get your finances in order, being properly diversified into what I call God's money. You have no attachment to the system, meaning the banks can crash, the markets can crash, the stocks can crash, but you know what? They don't affect you because you own this, even if it's in a private vault. So remember, if you haven't made Jesus Christ the center of your life, ask Him. Let that truth open your eyes. God bless you.
You can watch these programs on demand 24 hours a day, 7 days a week on your personal computer, your smartphone, or your tablet by going to cornerstoneassetmetals.com. Pull up the programs there and you can view them. Tell somebody about those programs and tell someone about the broadcast. My name is Charles Vance. For Terry Sacka, we'll see you next time right here on The Wealth Transfer.
Metals is here to help you protect and preserve what you have worked hard to gain. For those who have IRAs to protect, 401ks to preserve, or cash in the bank, we would like to send you a package of information regarding the changes to the dollar and the challenges of our economy that you need to be prepared for. This package includes how easy it is to roll over your current IRA or 401k into a physical precious metals IRA for long-term protection of your hard-earned wealth. For those of you with cash to invest, we can arrange to have your precious metals stored in a private vault or simply send it to your home. Call or register now.